instructions, press 2. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Harriet Kemick with Down to Earth. It's a show in which we talk about the issues that matter. And today we're talking about something that matters a great deal, and it's about serial killers who are targeting Black women. And this is particularly interesting because I don't believe that we've ever in our history really seen incidents in which serial killers target Black women. We've seen where serial killers kill women and kill anybody because they're serial killers. They just want to kill. They kill for the thrill of it. Uh, Thanks to Criminal Minds, we now have a pretty good idea. I shouldn't say that, it sounds so macabre, but thanks to Criminal Minds, we now have a pretty good idea of why people kill people. So today on our show, we're going to talk about serial killers who are targeting Black women. And this is especially interesting for me because I find that it's not something we talk about a lot. It's not something that we focus on a lot because we never needed to, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, sorry, I went off camera for a little bit there. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in this predicament where we find ourselves with serial killers who are targeting Black women. Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever heard, right? And why on God's green earth does this happen? I don't know. So it's interesting because in this particular episode, we focused on a young Black man who, as usual, the authorities kind of overlooked him because he didn't appear to be. I think we're so accustomed to seeing serial killers who are white. It never occurred to them that when as a group series of young women showed up missing in a particular area, it didn't occur to them that it could have been a Black man this time, right? And especially when these women were challenged. Some of them were sex workers, some of them had run away, or they were working, they were homeless. Not a nice place to be. And so why does this happen? So what happens is the serial killer in this case targeted these specific individuals because it suited him. It's one of those things where I know most of you are now looking at the impeachment situation and you probably are like riveted, but I want to distract you for just a few minutes this morning because the impeachment is going to be all day. They're going to talk all day, and then the talking heads are going to have a field day making money, and the consultants are also going to make money. So if you don't mind, you're going to be inundated on your timelines with this kind of talk all day. So for just a few minutes, let's focus on the issues that matter. And what really matters is talking about serial killers. Now, I myself, like most of us, have been curious about serial killers. I mean, what makes you, a human being, decide to kill another human being? And what makes you find it? Do you do it because of the thrill, or do you do you have some kind of diverse or otherly requirement that motivates you to kill people? I'm curious about that because I'm curious about people who do that. Doctors, for instance, fascinate me because doctors touch your body when you're ill. But you know whom I find creepy are morticians. People who touch the dead. They're creepy to me because I want to know, do you have some kind of macabre fascination with touching the human body when it's unresponsive and when it can't respond to you? So, it's one of those things that absolutely just creeps me out. I think the creepiness factor in it is how do you, and I think most of us are in this place where you can't figure out how do you kill someone. And the methods that serial killers use to kill people and then act as if nothing happened. Whereas you and I would be freaked out if somebody comes in our homes and in the moment you're trying to defend yourself and you boom and they drop, you're still gonna be, oh my God, you're gonna call 911 and freak out because you're freaked because it affects you. But a serial killer who kills and then just goes about his normal life like nothing happened. In this particular story, let me set it up for you. So this young man, right? Listen to this. He's young. He's 23 years old. He's facing a triple murder where he's charged with strangling and asphyxiating 3 women in 1 year in the fall of 2016. And he's also accused of the attempted murder of a 4th woman who was pregnant at the time. What they say he did was he targeted young Black women who turned to sex work to cope with homelessness because he said, listen to this, he said no one would notice if they disappeared. The authorities believe no one, he thought that, right? So he targets a particular group. That's so pathological, it's unbelievable. The question that I'm posing is, why are Black women viewed as being expendable in the eyes of those who target them? And what is it about a Black woman's existence that makes her more susceptible to such violence? And for Black sex workers whose mental health issues combined with threats of homelessness exacerbate their vulnerability. So I think I want to appeal to everybody. Can I just appeal to you all? Even if you are not Black, most of you are non-Black, right? And this happens for anybody, because even in the Deep South, we find that white women who are incarcerated in large numbers are incarcerated due to mental health issues and homelessness associated with mental health. And or they do petty theft, like, retail stuff, typically assault and violence, because when people are mentally challenged, they don't have the right receptors to perceive threats that are coming to them. So what we're finding is that they sometimes turn to sex work because it's a way not of coping, but it's a way of surviving. Because if they get paid for their sexual activities, then they can buy food and perhaps pay for a motel to stay in. So they're largely transient, right? And in that transience, they're expendable. No one sees them as valuable and no one will notice that they have disappeared. Maybe that's why I stay visible, because if you guys don't see me for a day or two, you'll be like, what's up with her? Let's go check her social media feed. Is she still on social media? Do you see what I'm saying? And so I am saying to you that something has got to be done, and we have to talk about this so that an awareness is created within each of us. It's not your responsibility to go find Black women and to figure out why Black women are being targeted. But suffice it to say that when it does happen, we find that it's because they are expendable. They're viewed as being expendable. And we need to figure out what that means. We need to figure out, why are Black women so transient and expendable? But in these stories, what we saw in this particular instance was that they were homeless and they had turned to sex work. And I don't know about anybody, but I'm just saying to people who are sex workers, y'all better get an app and have someone log in with a credit card, and you have a picture of who you're going to be with before you step into someone's car. Don't you guys find it very almost, it's almost as if, aren't you completely out of your mind to step into a stranger's car at night on a corner? Like, it's mind-blowing to me. I can't fathom that. I really can't go there. And yet, sex workers are very expendable, the ones who are on the street. And they are often targeted and often experience violence as a part of their sexual activity. And a lot of women who are homeless turn to sex work just so they can survive. Because men are always looking for sex, and men are always looking for ways in which they can have sex that A lot of men will tell you they'll have sex with sex workers because it doesn't require commitment and it doesn't require any attachments. So they just go about it. And when you look at it, you have to ask yourself, why? Right? I imagine that sex workers, and we call it sex work in contemporary language today, but I imagine it's always going to exist. I don't imagine that there will come a time in humanity when it won't exist. I think it will always exist. We're not here to say that it won't. I'm not here to say that it won't. What I'm saying is there needs to be more opportunities perhaps to provide it so people will not feel that they have to turn to sex work, and especially when you're vulnerable. A lot of what we have seen now in our society is that people with mental illnesses have turned to sex work because they don't have any other way of surviving, because family can't cope with them, so family puts them out. Family can't cope, so family calls, call the police come and lock them up, take them away. Family, don't bring them back here, I can't cope with them, because there are no mental health treatment facilities around the country. It's just something that apparently we don't think is necessary. They took that out of the budget in 1971 or 1973 because some crazy ass guy from Yale or Stanford, some crazy psychiatrist, I can't even remember his name, went and said, oh my God, the conditions in mental health facilities are so bad. We need to not lock people up, shut them all down. And we all shut them down. And what we fail to realize is that people who are mentally unwell do need somewhere where they are treated, because they can't be treated by family members. So now that we have no psychiatric care facilities in most of the country, people who are mentally unwell, where are they? They are homeless. Sometimes they have surviving family members who simply can't cope, so they don't bother. And sometimes they just don't have anybody at all, so they can't cope. So they're out there on the street. They are a prime target for violence. They're a prime target to be sex trafficked, human trafficked, to be used as whether sex slaves or other kind of slavery. It happens. As well as they're also targeted for violence because nobody cares. The cop is going to drive past without seeing that that's a human being, a whole human being laying on the ground, right? Nobody cares about the value that this was once a person, somebody's baby. This was once somebody's child, right? And in this particular case, there's one of the young women whom he killed, this young man. His name is Khalil Weaver. He's 23 years old. He killed 3 women in like the space of a month and a half in the fall of 2016. And they even say in one case, one of the women whom he killed, he burnt the abandoned building down. Can you believe it? And returned, like every guilty person, returned to the scene of the crime and was standing outside watching the fire truck extinguish the flames in the building that he burned to disguise that someone was inside. He had strangled her. I don't know they didn't say where he grew up or how he grew up. They didn't say if he had, because some of these serial killers, they start killing real early. They start by killing family pets. It's not a lie. They start by killing pets. They get the first thrill, and then it's something. I'm just saying it's a deviant form of humanity. It's extremely deviant. Talk about deviant behavior. That's what that is. Because before he killed them, he socialized with them. In this one instance that they're charging him, he actually had a text conversation going on by phone text with the victim. And the victim actually texts them this. Are you ready? Guess what she said? You're not a serial killer, are you? This apparently was her first time. Her parents were expecting her home, and she went home, took her mother's vehicle, got in it, and was apparently trying to make some extra money. So she texted him through her social media account. So he was looking for people on social media. This is why you and I are watching our social media feed and seeing some stuff on it and saying, you must be out of your mind to post stuff like that. They literally are. Because mental illness is something today. I don't know. When I was growing up, people who were mentally crazy were just locked away, right? But mental illness today apparently is not immediately discernible. I don't know if they're on meds that controls them all the time, but sometimes it takes a while for you to realize that somebody is actually off. So they have the ability to create social media profiles and to know that they can go solicit and just post some pictures. Because frankly, like a couple nights ago, I was on Facebook, and it was late at night, and I forgot that one of the reasons why I had stopped looking at Facebook was some of the stuff that I saw on my timeline. Well, it was late at night. It was probably like after, when I say late, I'm talking about like after 10, after 11. I'm so glad kids were not on Facebook. And up on my feed pops people post, all of a sudden we're just posting naked pictures or semi-naked pictures. And I was just like, okay, let's get to the real stuff here. Like, seriously. And I said to myself, so they do know that they should post late at night. And they were getting a lot of likes. So the people who are looking for that are out there. And I'm thinking to myself, you must be out of your mind to post a full frontal with your face and your body and inviting people to like you. You must be crazy, because people will inbox you and ask you to meet them on the corner of so-and-so, and they will get it done. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the craziest thing ever. So now in this particular, so this young man, Khalil Weaver, knew how to, this is the thing with these characters. They know how to profile someone, and they know what to say to them to extract out of them what they want. If a serial killer is going to kill you, trust me, you're not going to know. They have already planned it out in their minds. They know exactly what moves you're going to make, how they're going to counter your moves, and how they're going to corner you. It's almost as if you can't win. A serial killer is a dangerous person. And I'm not saying it makes you wonder, are there serial killers among us that we don't know about? What is the profile of a serial killer? I think we should all go look that up, because sometimes people can just be loners, but they're not serial killers. I'm scared of people who don't have a network of people around them. As a woman, I would never date anybody, any man, who does not have friends whom I can think of or know of. I would not. This internet dating fantasy is exactly what it is, a fantasy. Because a lot of people will not forthrightly tell you how dangerous it is to connect with someone online. People are going out of the state to go meet people in hotels whom you don't know. Are you nuts? People are getting robbed, and they're not reporting it because they really can't say, I was looking for some kinky sex. I was looking for sex outside of my marriage or outside of my relationship. I can't afford for the people around me who know me to know that this is what I like. And then they're taken advantage of. Right? Dangerous. So he's not the first black serial killer. I know of another one. He's not the first one, but it makes you wonder. Hello, morning, right? It makes you wonder. I'm glad you guys aren't tuned into the impeachment stuff. You don't need that stuff. It's going to be there all day. They're not going to stop. They're going to go on and on looking for ratings, and on and on and on and on. Right? So take some time out to think about this. Help me think this through, right? So have you ever thought about what makes a serial killer? What makes another person sit there and look at you and say, I'm going to kill that person, and I know exactly how to kill them, and so on? It's crazy. It's crazy. It's the craziest thing ever. So, my production assistant was saying, well, why are black women so easily targeted? Because they're not valuable. Black women are not valued by the society. Therefore, they're targets of violence, and especially if they're already on the skids, if they're already challenged domestically. So if they are homeless, right, they're more susceptible. And I told you this last week, that in Detroit, there's this colony of white people, young, especially young white people. The oldest might be 35, right? That's the higher end, the older end of the spectrum, who are homeless, and they've been made largely homeless by past drug use, right? So drug addiction has contributed to their homelessness, and they're rendered totally incapacitated, totally incapable of leading a normal life, or they recently emerged out of prison and their family has rejected them. So they're homeless, so they live in abandoned houses, so they created a whole colony, right? So everyone, the law enforcement and so on, they know they're there, but there is rampant drug abuse. You know what else is rampant there? Violence, sexual violence and physical violence, rampant. Assault. Who is going to validate them and validate their existence when the society is saying they threw you out, your own family doesn't want you, and here you are walking the streets, smelly, dirty, broken down. Nobody wants to have anything to do with you, right? And so because they're perceived as being invaluable, they become targets for sex trafficking. They become targets for people with nefarious intentions looking to take advantage of vulnerable people. And the problem is further compounded and exacerbated by one's own ethnicity, right? And your own, so you find yourself like you don't have something to do. I remember 2 years ago, it must have been Thanksgiving, and I remember a woman reaching out and wanting help, and she had young children. She had 3 young daughters, and I remember saying, you have no idea how much you are at risk for sleeping with your children in the car at night. And they were trying to find shelter before winter had really set in. You know what I mean? It was like early Thanksgiving, early November, like now, when it wasn't that cold. But after Thanksgiving, it's going to get pretty cold. Well, not to this year. This year, it started getting cold before Thanksgiving even started. We're in November, and we already have a snowstorm. There's ice on the streets, right? And I remember telling her that she has no idea how compromised she is. She has no idea how compromised she is. And I kid you not. I kid you not. You've got to understand, my friends, how important it is for you to be able to this is why I say to everybody, please keep yourselves. Keep an eye out on your young women. Watch over them. If you know somebody in your family who is perhaps mentally challenged, tell that family to keep a rod around them, because they're vulnerable and they're susceptible to being easily influenced, because they don't know, they're not able to perceive danger. So somebody giving them attention, they might view it as positive attention when that person is probably going to sexually assault them or rape them, or in this case, murder them. Hear what the young lady said before she was killed. What did she say? She texted him to say, "You're not a serial killer, are you?" You know what that tells you? That tells you that she somehow realized that her meeting someone she's never met before on a Facebook medium to go make arrangements to go meet him somewhere where you're going to get into his car. It immediately stirred up misgivings in her. But did she act on her own misgivings? No. And from reading that story, her sister and her mother were immediately displaced when she hadn't returned home that night. By the next morning, they were calling the police because they thought something had gone wrong with her. This is why I say, folks, use your phones to catch up with your folks, right? If you have an iPhone, you can add people to your phone whom you want to keep in touch with, and you want to track people's location. On Google phones, I don't know how it works if you have to download an app to track where people are, but on iPhones, you can just send a friend request to your family members so you can keep tabs on them all the time. We all need to do that, right? We all need to figure out, how do we do that? We all need to. Because if you don't, we are looking at people who are largely vulnerable, who are being taken advantage of. and who are being set up and being used not just for sex trafficking, but invariably they're a murder experiment. I'm beginning to think that the faces of so many missing people have just disappeared across the country. There is an epidemic of missing women, missing Black women and girls, an epidemic. It's estimated over 200,000 Black women have disappeared since 2010. It's almost as if they're just gone without a trace. Not a word, just disappeared. They were walking down one street one day and they got into someone's car and they're never seen or heard from again. I am saying, even for your family members who might have gone to college in another city, in another state, and they are short on money, they will think that being a sex worker is a quick way to make money. But baby, if you can't go to their dorm room and if they can't come to your dorm room on campus, you don't need to be with them, period. You know what I mean? I think we have to get to that stage where we recognize that something is off with some people. And serial killers don't necessarily come like, the brooding type. They don't always look like the guy who's creepy driving the creepy pedophile van around. Serial killers are often ordinary people. There's nothing suggestive about them. In fact, in this story I'm telling you about, the young man Khalil Weaver, they say he acted like a regular guy. He looked like a graduate student. He wore glasses. How disarming. He wore glasses, for God's sake, and dressed like a regular bloke, a regular dude, just, going about his business. But at the same time, he was busy killing people. God help us all. God help us all. Like, truly, we need help. I kid you not, folks. We need help. Right? We need help. But I also want to focus on, who are these women? Who are they? Why does such a large percentage of our population seem to be invalued? Historically, could be, right? Cultural, right? There are many reasons why. And here's the thing, when you don't value a large segment of your population, anything can happen, right? So you have to, we have to, and I think it's up to some of us too. You have to kind of leave yourself and leave the folks around you open to be able to make sure that you don't leave yourself vulnerable. Make sure there's some value attached to your life. And if you're single, here's some things to consider. If you're single, have a routine that your friends and family can pinpoint, right? Always make sure you're texting or you're in touch with someone, because nowadays what they're even doing, they're even taking over someone's phone, using their thumbprint to log in, and then they're posting from the person's phone as if nothing has happened. Disconnecting location settings so carriers can't find out, but still ping off a tower somewhere. I'm just saying. Aren't people creepy? Is that not creepy behavior? I don't know about you, but it is really creepy to me. I have the TV on in the background looking at this thing going on, and I'm like, I don't know. Impeachment 2019 style. I almost said impeachment 2020, then I realized next year 2020 hasn't come yet. Right? And so we're looking at this because we're like, well, what the heck is going on? Why are so many Black women showing up missing? And you're probably asking me that because of homelessness. Where does the homelessness come from? Mental health issues, right? That's one, and that's a big part, as well as people are sex workers. And believe me, a lot of violence takes place in sex work. You might be just amazed to know how much violence takes place in sex work. I read a University of Minnesota study about a year or two ago in which they talked about the author of that study, right? The author of that study talked about how much violence takes place in sex work. And he was writing it from the perspective that a lot of people who participate in sex work do so because they want control of the sexual experience and they want violence attached to it, because the violence makes them feel more in control. Now, I'm not going to say that people should do whatever. I'm not going to go there with that. I'm not going to dispute that. I am just saying that you want to have a sexual experience in which violence is a component. There's something wrong with you. You know, people do stuff like they do, like they do the stuff where they play out the BDSM stuff, and 50 Shades of Grey, let's just be clear, was violent sex. No matter how you want to call it, it was still forcible, right? But it makes me wonder. It does make me wonder, right? It does make me wonder. I'm just saying, folks, we all need to pay attention. We all need to pay attention. This happened in New Jersey, by the way. So it's kind of like New Jersey. I kid you not. In the fall of 2016, this young man killed 3 women. If they had not caught him, and what happens is, how they caught him was the young woman who was killed, how they caught him was they pretended that they wanted to meet with him. They created another fake profile so that they could meet with him. Are you kidding me? Did you hear me? They created another fake profile and he responded to it so that they could meet with him. And when he showed up for that one, the feds were all over it. Because by this time, having gone through her sister's profile, they knew what to say to get him. And he didn't realize that it was a setup. He walked right into it, and they knew right away they had the right person. The minute he agreed to the meetup, they got him before he could do any harm. But his victims were 4, one of whom was pregnant at the time. And she says when she got in the car, she was pregnant and desperate and just needed the money, but she did not intend to really have sex with him. She just wanted the payment, and then she was going to run. But he strangled her, and she pretended to be dead so that she could get away. And she described everything in detail. Guess what? The details of that coincided with the other stuff that the police knew was going on. You got to go read this stuff. I posted the link already. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to read it. And you will see the links in the story that takes you to the page. It's just incredible. And I am just saying these things happen all the time. So I'm asking everybody, if you have a family member who is mentally unwell, check in. Don't just leave them alone. Don't just think that because they're bipolar or whatever, that the medication covers them and they're fine. They're not fine. Check in with your people. Ask them, are you doing okay? Are you all right? Is it okay? Are you fine? Check in with your people. Who are you staying with? Who is there with you? Never forget to ask that question. Who are you with? Track people's location, right? If you have a Google phone, I think there's an app you can download where you can track people. But on an iPhone, usually it's called Find Friends. You just send the person a request, and they click on it and accept it. And before you know it, you're sharing location. On an iPhone, you can go into messages, right? And when you go into messages, you're able to see the person's profile. And when you look at the profile, if you click on it, it's going to tell you audio, FaceTime, or info. If you click on info, it's going to tell you, it can show you where the person is. See how it looks, right? See? But I'm not telling you something you don't already know, right? Then, if you don't want to do it through messaging, you can always do Find Friend. They changed that stuff that I want to cry. I can't even find it now on an iPhone. They changed the icon that says Find Friend. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity and the option to be able to find someone who is there, right? And it gives you some control over how you can find people, right? It says Find My Friend, right? You can find your iPhone. You can find all your devices. So as for me, Any device that is attached to my iPhone, I attach them all to my iPhone. You can find it. You can click on it, and it can tell you where people are, right? And it will tell you even where you are, because it will tell me where I am, and it will tell me where you are and the approximate location, and it would also tell me how many miles from where you are it is. Neat and nifty, isn't it? I think we need to do that, especially if you have a family member who is mentally unwell and who needs to be monitored, right? You need to figure out, how do you do that monitoring if they insist on staying by themselves? It's not going to hurt sometimes to put up a camera in people's homes if they're mentally unwell, so you know who is coming and who is going. I kid you not, right? We're all getting paranoid because people are crazy. We now have a thing called porch pirates, right? Who would have thought that deliveries to your home would get stolen by people who are just randomly driving through the neighborhood and looking to see if you have something on your porch? Who would have thought? People do this stuff all the time. So now you have your camera that is showing it. And I don't know, recently I saw one in Detroit where they went to someone's house and a Jeep was parked in front, and they took the rims and the tires off the Jeep. And I'm like, with all that racket going on, how could the people inside still be asleep? Who knows what they do to make sure people stay asleep? They must be spraying the house with something to make sure people sleep. As for me, I don't know about that. As for me, nah, I don't know. Right? I'm not going to say anything because I'm particular, and I'm now thinking about it, right? We've got to get to that stage, because you don't know, people are weird today, and they are very, very weird. Check in with your people. Check in with your people. If you have a young lady who is in college, call them morning and night and check their location, and tell them to call you if they're going to be out at night, or if they're going to walk somewhere that might be alone, or it's not a route well traveled. I tell my daughters, travel in groups. Don't be a loner. Have a group of people with whom you go somewhere with. Don't walk to your car by yourself. If you're going to go walk to your car, get on the phone with someone if it's just you, so that someone else can be aware. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just some of the things to keep in touch, because there will always, we can't stop some of these things from happening. There will always be people who have intentions to destroy other people's lives, right? These things do happen. People do stuff like this. Any questions? I have posted, if you go to my Twitter feed, you'll be able to see the link. I believe it's also on Facebook. You'll be able to see the link that affords you the option to read the story about this young black man who killed 3 women in a 6-week period in the fall of 2016, and strangled a 4th woman who was pregnant. Can you imagine? She had to lay there playing dead so that he could walk away. If they hadn't, the authorities say he was nothing. He looked nothing like the profile of a serial killer. They would have almost walked away from him without looking at him. But it was one of the girls who died, their family member, who insisted on taking a look. They were like, let's follow this guy. Let's look into this guy whom she was going to meet. And then at the same time, there were stories circulating that a number of women had shown up missing, or the police found bodies in abandoned buildings. Wow. And I know you're all amazed. Like, these things happen? Yes, unfortunately, they do. They do happen, and they happen with alacrity within communities of color and within people who are vulnerable. It's just like, unfortunately, a lot of people who are mentally challenged often end up in foster care. That's another space where people are violated and who are vulnerable. Just think, they end up in foster care for whatever reason. They're abandoned by family, so they're deemed not valuable. And then somebody comes along and rapes them. It's not unusual in foster care for children to have been the victim of sexual and physical violence, right? And those people are traumatized to the extent that By the time they grow up, they're severely traumatized, right? Sucks. But sometimes I like a story that's just ripped right from the headlines. When I read the story a couple days ago, I was like, wow, wow. So what are we going to do about this? What's the end goal here? What's the end goal? There are a couple of things that we have to keep in mind. We have to recognize that there are some populations within our society who are vulnerable and will continue to be vulnerable. Once we make that identification, then we can move forward. We have to accept that. The reasons why don't matter. The fact is, in the here and now, they're vulnerable, right? Uh, Once we accept that, then we can work to correct it so that other people won't fall into the same gaps. But what happens is through budget cuts over the last 30 years, there are lots of gaps in services. So people run out of credit. They run out of the ability to maintain themselves. And so they become vulnerable to other people who perhaps want to take advantage of them. You really sometimes have to say, but for the grace of God, go I. And I am happy for you that you are financially stable, and these things may never arrive at your door. That's a good thing. It may never arrive at your family members' doors, but for those of us, even though it may never arrive at my door, I am aware that this continues to happen. Right? There's a certain section of Detroit that whenever I drive through there, I literally cry. I see black and white women on the street and transgender people on the street selling their bodies for sex, especially at certain times. It makes you feel some type of way, but who is buying sex from them? Who has the ability to buy sex from them? It's not the poor guy who's just going to his factory job, right? Who is buying sex? When we figure that out and when we fix that, I believe we'll see a sharp decline. Sometimes you have to humanize people. You have to put a human face on it because they're just no name, no face, nobody. They're nothing. They don't even have a name. They're not valuable. They don't mean anything to people, right? So you have to put a name and a face on it for you to realize that this person is actually valuable. And there's someone somewhere for whom their life is meaningful, right? So if you want more information on the story, I've posted the link. Go look at it, take a look at it, listen to it, read it. And of course, continue to support our broadcast. I thank you so much for sharing this time with me. My name is Harriet Kimmick. My broadcast is down to earth. You can find me anywhere on the web. You can also find my broadcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I encourage you to go and listen to the subjects we talk about. And as you know, this is a listener-supported program, which means if you continue to support us, then we'll continue to bring subjects of interest to you. So go to my website, theexodusfoundation.com, and be a blessing to us. Support us. It's not going to take anything. Help us to reach people who ordinarily do not have access. Thank you so much. We're very privileged to sit in the place where we have access and we are valued and deemed valuable so that nobody will ever take advantage of you. You're very privileged. Think about that. Nobody will take advantage of you or your family members because they think that you are not valuable. You're very privileged, and I celebrate that with you today. Thank you so much, everybody. Come back and see us tomorrow. And about the impeachment thing, why don't you stay away? Just stay away from it, because it's this will be us. By tomorrow this time, this will be us. Like, seriously, it's just going to go on and on and on. And they're going to talk you to death. And they're just going to go on and on and on. Right? Thank you so much, everybody. Be blessed. it's just gonna. I mean, they're not gonna stop this impeachment stuff all day. Thanks, everybody. Be blessed.